Okay, welcome back. Today I'm doing a little bit different style video where I'm sharing all of the reviews that I can find about people that have come to Salt Lake City, Utah and given a review. So I'm using one of my most popular websites, my favorite websites for searching out reviews with stuff just like this, and that is niche.com or niche.com. However you want to say it. If you want to be fancy, say niche.com. But regardless, this is a place where people can leave reviews for different places that they've either visited or lived in. And I thought it'd be really interesting to dive into some of these reviews and pick some of them apart and really digest them and see what's fact, what's fiction, what are the things that are just feelings that people have versus what are the facts. And I want to really decipher this so that you have a clearer picture as to what to expect if you yourself are considering making the move to Utah. Okay, so let's not wait to get started. Let's dive right in. So right here on niche.com, there are a total of 737 reviews for Salt Lake City, Utah. So I'm going to first start with the excellent reviews at the top and then the good, the average, the poor, and the bad reviews for Salt Lake City, Utah. So let's get started right now and stay till the end because at the end, I'll be doing the funnest ones, which are the bad reviews. So let's really dive into some of these reviews and see how much of this is actually facts versus feelings. All right, so starting off with the excellent reviews, I'm going to kind of just skim through some of these reviews and give my honest feedback. I've really enjoyed Salt Lake City. I've lived here my whole life, and the beauty of the mountains can never be overshown. Okay. Obviously, that's a big draw. People always come to Utah for those beautiful Wasatch Mountains. It's a sight to behold, and many of my clients that have lived here for a number of years already tell me all the time that they just want to pinch themselves because they wake up and they get to drive into work and see those beautiful mountains each and every day. But moving on, let's see what else we can find. The next one, Salt Lake City is a beautiful place nestled under the Grand Wasatch Front where the desert hills just north of downtown ascend into breathtaking peaks, circles, blah, 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 Mount Olympus, Twin Peaks. If you're looking for hiking, mountain biking, rock climbing, or just a beautiful view, there's so many canyons, etc., etc., etc. Down further, it says, as an artist, I value a thriving art scene, which Salt Lake City is continuing to nurture as more out-of-state residents enter the city. However, being from Santa Fe, New Mexico, I value a deeper prioritization of the arts. Salt Lake is an ideal place to raise a family. There's an abundance of neighborhoods filled with family homes and a deep sense of value placed on a family lifestyle. This could not be more true. If you're looking to make the move to Utah, this is one of the big driving factors as to why people choose to live here. One of the big draws overall is it's the political environment, it's the family-friendly environment itself. It's a great place to raise a family. These are things that are being told to me each and every day as people are reaching out to me from my YouTube videos to let me know when they're coming here, why they're coming here. And of course, I have a whole series of questions that I like to ask to make sure that we are dialed into what we can do to best serve them. And this couldn't be more true. All right, moving on. I have lived in Salt Lake City my whole life and truly love it here. Before this year, I wanted to move out for college, but now it's dawned on me that this place is really amazing and I want to stay for college. Obviously, sometimes we don't realize how good we've got it until we don't have it anymore. And for some people that grew up here, they end up leaving, they move somewhere else. Perhaps they go to California, perhaps they go to a different state. So many of those people are coming back because they miss what Utah provides. Some people don't, some people do, but I think a lot of people are coming back because it's really a cool place to be. All right, moving on. Salt Lake City is a great place to work, blah, blah, blah. There are a lot of great places to go for lunch that are pretty healthy. The atmosphere seems clean. There's a lot of nice people, great job opportunities. Yeah, pretty much all of these things are pretty true. Very true, actually. Next up, I am currently pursuing an undergraduate degree at the University of Utah, so I live in East Salt Lake City. The area that I live in is quiet and seems to be a mix of family and college students. Yeah, this is a great place if you're raising a family. It's also a great college town as well. If you're in Salt Lake City, you have the University of Utah, and then just a little bit further to the south, we have Brigham Young University, and to the north, we have Weber State and Utah State Universities. So there are a lot of little college vibes in some of these micro areas, especially near these college campuses, which is kind of cool. It gives a cool vibe. But moving on, I like this one. I thought this one was interesting. Living in Salt Lake City, Utah offers a unique blend of urban amenities and stunning natural beauty. I think this is a line that I've used in so many of my YouTube videos because it couldn't be more true. The city is framed by the majestic Wasatch Mountains, providing endless opportunities for outdoor activities like hiking, skiing, and mountain biking. The city itself boasts a vibrant cultural scene with museums, galleries, and thriving dining scene offering a variety of cuisines. Honestly, I think this person needs to just come and do YouTube videos for me because they're doing a phenomenal job of telling the strengths that Salt Lake City provides, the pros. So I think this is awesome. They also talk about further on down that however, living in Salt Lake City also means experiencing the occasional inversion in the winter, which can lead to very poor air quality. Overall, Salt Lake City offers a high quality of life with a strong sense of community and easy access to both urban and outdoor adventures. This is so true. If you want to be in a city in the United States where you have the best of the outdoors within just a matter of minutes of pretty much anywhere you live, as well as the urban scene with Salt Lake City providing the sports, the entertainment, perhaps not as much nightlife as some people might say they would like to see, but nobody has ever moved to Utah because of the nightlife, I gotta be honest. But if you're looking for that diverse experience between city, urban life, and outdoors, there's no place in this country that offers that better mix within such a short amount of time and space. Okay, so here's another one that sticks out. I've lived in Salt Lake City my entire life. I'm not part of the LDS Church, which has caused the occasional issue among meeting new people. In general, Salt Lake City is extremely safe and family-friendly. Utah is extremely family-oriented and has so many activities geared towards families. There are many parks and museums as well as outdoor learning centers like This Is the Place, which teaches children about pioneers who travel to Utah. Safety and family-oriented activities have been heavily affected by the LDS Church, but in general, it is a good thing. Salt Lake City and the entirety of Utah are perfect for anyone who wants to get outside. Obviously, this is a massive truth. This is something that a lot of people experience. I like that we get a little bit of a perspective from someone who's not of the predominant faith here as well, so that's cool. They love it here. All right, moving on. This one's kind of interesting. Salt Lake City has finally become a great place to live, which is kind of funny because in the comments on some of my videos, a lot of people, at least the vocal minority that are complaining about what Utah is becoming because it is growing, are complaining that it used to be a great place to live and that it no longer is. I think it all boils down to your perspective. This person thinks it's now become a great place to live. There are more opportunities, people, and vitality present within the greater Salt Lake area more than ever before. I think that's a cool take. Okay, here's another one. I've lived in Salt Lake City, Utah for the majority of my life, and I think it is the best place to live. The beauty here of the mountains is the best part about living here. Simple, short, sweet, love it. Okay, here's another interesting one. Not enough public transport. Bus stops are dark and unsafe. Buses don't run very late, not very diverse, and the population is segregated. Religious leaders have a monopoly over the government. The church doesn't run the government at all in any way, shape, or form, but I think what this person is really getting at, the elected government officials do belong to this faith, and therefore their values are part of how they vote. So in my opinion, if we want different leaders, we have the choice to elect them because 42% of the state of Utah identifies with the predominant faith, the LDS Church, while the remaining 58% do not. So if we want more people in government that represent our values or our interests, we simply have to vote them in. But they go on, they say otherwise, we have a lot of beautiful scenery and many things to do in the outdoors, many kind people, and it is family friendly. Go. Great take. I love that. Moving on, Salt Lake is close to so many fun things to do. There's plenty of shopping in the area. Public transport can get you pretty much anywhere in the city you'd be interested in going. I've enjoyed living here and in the many surrounding cities. Cool. Awesome take. I think we're going to get a whole lot more of the same if we read through more of these excellent reviews of Salt Lake City. Let's move on now and just go down to the next category. These are the very good reviews. And all in all, out of the total 737 reviews, it looks like over 600 of those are either excellent or very good. So let's check out a few of the very good ones, and then we're going to get into the fun stuff. All right, let's move on down here. It says here, I was born and raised in Salt Lake City. I enjoy the city. The people are friendly, and it is overall safe. I would say, although it is a fast-growing city, it is not very diverse. Okay, fair take. Totally true. Utah is not known for its diversity, although it is changing and evolving rapidly. I think some people want more diversity, but Utah's not the place to be if that's really what you're looking for. But it is changing. It is evolving over time. Next up, this person said, Salt Lake is a beautiful area, but overcrowded with little to no separation of church and state. If you move here, just know that there are a lot of restrictions on things the church does not approve of. I think what they're responding to, or at least I'm going to suspect they're talking about the alcohol laws here, which is very true. This state was founded based on the principles of the LDS Church when these pioneers came to this place and settled this city as well as the surrounding areas. And those values in terms of alcohol restrictions have stayed true. Utah has some of the strictest alcohol laws you'll find. So if that's really important to you, it might not be a great place for you. And so I will admit fully that the alcohol laws here can be a little funny, a little quirky, totally different and unique if you're coming from out of state, so I totally understand where they're coming from. All right, this one's interesting. Living in Salt Lake City itself is great, especially for the queer community. Once you get out of Salt Lake City itself, things start to get much more conservative and Christian, which isn't great if you don't fall into those categories. I gotta be honest, I don't care if you're on one side of the aisle or the other. I don't think there's any way to say that one is great and one is not. In other words, if you're not conservative and Christian, does that mean it's a bad thing? Of course not. There's just a different place for different people, and some people are gonna fit in more over here, and some people are gonna fit in more more over there. Regardless, go find your tribe, go find your vibe, and just stick with it, because here in Utah, you can find something pretty much for everybody. But they go on and they say really close to the mountains, which is great. Always seems to be construction going on, which is not as great. Overall, good experience. Yeah, construction is pretty much always going on. There's a saying here that there are only 2 seasons in Utah. There's ski season and construction season. So yeah, totally get it. All right, next up, Salt Lake City is a lively and a beautiful city. Great mix of new and old architecture. Great opportunities for young adults and people pursuing art and education. That's cool. I think that's very true. Moving on, we have the housing affordability is not good. That is so true. Housing affordability in Utah has become a crisis. We have such a limited supply. We don't have enough homes. We're over 40,000 homes short of meeting current demand, let alone the demand that's growing each and every year as more people move here. So does that mean that everyone's homeless because they can't find a home? No. But what it does mean is that the prices of existing inventory and the prices of new homes are continuing to go on the rise. And I think this is a trend that isn't just unique to Utah. It's happening in Colorado and Idaho and Utah and Vegas and down in Phoenix. It's happening throughout the Intermountain West as this area has become incredibly popular, along with the Sun Belt through the states of Texas and Florida and other areas that are incredibly popular and trendy right now. So yes, housing affordability is definitely a crisis right now. So hopefully we can do some things and be proactive enough to create an environment where we can build more homes in a more streamlined manner with less red tape so that these developers can keep up with demand. And I know that a lot of people are going to hate on the developers too, because they are the ones that are destroying our state by building it too quickly, and so many homes are going up and so many apartments and townhomes, etc. But in all honesty, if you want affordable housing, we are going to have to build a lot more units. So there's no way around it. It's a simple supply-demand equation, and it's not in balance right now, nor is it in balance in most places that I just described. So hopefully we can continue down a path of improving on the housing affordability. Okay, this one's interesting. I greatly enjoyed growing up in Salt Lake. It provided me with gorgeous scenery and a very safe place to live. However, after moving to college, I realized how sheltered my childhood was simply by the place I grew up. Okay, so this makes total sense. If all you've ever experienced is living in Utah and you grew up here and now you're going out into the world and you're having a college experience, you're coming of age, that is absolutely the time where you're going to start feeling like you're coming out of things and you're experiencing a whole new world, and you will feel sheltered. And I think that could be said by a lot of places, regardless of where you come from. So I think that's a cool take though. Okay, here's a good one. I've lived in Los Angeles and Salt Lake City. I mentioned this because a lot of people move here from California. There's lots of outdoor activities to do nearby, like hiking and snowboarding, if you're into that. Downtown Salt Lake City has a large homeless population, so beware of that. The truth about the downtown homeless population, that it is large, it's actually anywhere from 2,500 to 3,000 people that are homeless in the entire state of Utah. And as you drive through downtown Salt Lake City, as I have clients moving here and visiting here each and every single week, they're telling me how clean the city is. They're saying how amazing it is. And then other people will drive through Salt Lake City and say how terrible it is. In all honesty, if you drive through Salt Lake City, there are literally just a couple of streets that if you drive through those couple of streets in those couple of zones, you are going to see the homeless population. You will see people struggling, and that's precisely where that happens, is on the west side of Salt Lake City. But do we have a systemic, overarching, massive homeless population? No, we don't. It's just a few thousand people, and my heart goes out to them because a lot of them are struggling with drug abuse, mental health problems, and I'm hoping that we can come up with solutions in the future that serve them, help them, give them a leg up without enabling their poor decisions. So hopefully we can have that compassion, but at the same time lift them up. All right, let's move on. Let's do one more in this category, and then we'll move on to the fun stuff. Okay, so here's a good one. I lived in Salt Lake City while I was finishing high school. I never really got out much most of my life, but the public transportation system Salt Lake City offers made it easy for me to go anywhere I needed. With this resource, it was a lot easier for me to convince myself to go out. The amount of dates I took myself on could possibly fill a novel. That sounds interesting. Maybe you should write that book. It's the perfect city for someone who may not be able to drive themselves places. The trains are very safe. All right, that's a cool take. I think that's very true. We do have a good public transportation system here in the Salt Lake City metropolitan area. If you stretch yourself outside of Salt Lake City into Utah County or Davis and Weber County up north, far more limited options, but Salt Lake City is doing really well. And I do believe that with the announcement of the 2034 Winter Games, that public transportation system will only expand even more. So I think it's a really cool spot. I don't personally feel unsafe ever to use the tracks, the light rail system, or the trains. Overall, Salt Lake City has a great public transportation system, at least here in Salt Lake County. All right, let's move on to the fun reviews and let's get into some of the negativity. I know that a lot of people really have fun reading some of the negative stuff. So I know that if you're like me, sometimes you go down to the bottom reviews or the worst reviews when you're picking out or selecting a product to purchase or a service. You want to see what the worst of it is. And sometimes if we have that really good filter, we can decipher through what the person on the other side of that keyboard might be feeling and how that's being expressed so that we can then decipher exactly what the meaning behind it might be and if that means anything to us at all. And while I'm going through these reviews, I would love it if you would drop a comment below and like this video so more people can see this video. And if this is the content that resonates with you, please consider subscribing. I see that the vast majority of my viewers that are watching my videos regularly are not subscribed. So if that's you, I would love it if you would hit that subscribe button, and it helps you because it gets more of my content in front of you that can better serve you as you're making a decision as to whether or not you're moving to Utah as well. All right, let's move on. Let's get into the average reviews. Now we're getting into the good stuff. So if we go into the average reviews, let's just read a few of these. The infrastructure here is very car-centric. That's true. I think the United States in general is a very car-centric country where pretty much every American city, you're going to pretty much feel the same thing. There are some areas that are very walkable, but for the most part, you're going to want or need a car. They continue, rents are out of control. The market rate for almost any working class wage isn't. It is just barely a livable wage, at least for most industries. If you're already rich or in healthcare, or at least moderately devout in the LDS Church, there are a lot of opportunities. If not, opportunity is very limited. Okay, so if you're a devout member of the LDS Church, you don't really have more opportunities, but what you do have are resources where people can help you with job placement if that's something that you need help with. If you need help with your resume, if you need help with career advancement opportunities and preparing yourself in leadership and other ways that will really better manage yourself and your talents so that you can step up in your job position and make more money, then yes, the church does help people do that. And it's actually not just for LDS members, it's for anybody that seeks out those resources. It says here the public transportation is very limited. A lot of important pivotal routes don't run more than once an hour, nor on Sundays. Okay, totally get it. If you are using public transportation, you are going to be more limited on Sundays for sure, and you're going to have to factor in that additional time you'll be using or wasting for waiting for those bus lines or those trains. Okay, so here's one that really hits home, at least with a lot of people that I talk to. Salt Lake is beautiful, and I would love to raise my family here. However, the cost of living has increased, and it is no longer realistic for young families. I'm returning to school as a new mother because we need a second income in order to afford a home of our own. My heart goes out to people, right? Young people have it so much harder than ever before to be able to afford buying a home. And sometimes I have people, that bought their first home in the 70s or the 80s when interest rates were absolutely out of control. And some of those people will say, well, these young people just need to buck up. I paid 15 or 17% interest when I bought my house. So quit complaining about the 6 or 7% that we see today. When in reality, those two scenarios are completely different. You cannot compare, because back then you could afford to buy a home on 4 times your annual income. In other words, if you take the annual income of that year versus the median home price of that year, it only took 4 years of your annual income to be able to buy a house. Well, those days are long gone, but today you're nearly spending 10 times your annual income just to buy a median priced home. So housing affordability, as always, is a topic of concern. And I believe that it is the greatest threat to the state of Utah in terms of our future if we don't create a system, a way for young families to be able to also buy homes here. What are they going to do? They're all going to leave. And if that's the case, what's going to happen to the economy here? What's going to happen with everything here? So I think it's really, honestly, the greatest threat to Utah's future. So hopefully we can get things resolved. All right, next one. Very amazing city with lots of culture and places to go and explore. Not once have I not seen anything new from walking around and not taking in the scenery around me. Okay, very positive review. Don't know why it only got 3 stars, but hey, it's their prerogative. They get to choose. It's their review. Okay, here's another one. Likes, outdoor recreation. Salt Lake City is surrounded by beautiful mountains and features great outdoor activities such as hiking, skiing, or biking. The local ski resorts are also especially popular, including those in the Wasatch Mountains. Of course, most of the ski resorts here are all in the Wasatch Mountains. They continue the cultural scene. The city boasts a thriving cultural environment consisting of many museums, art galleries, theaters, and music spots. Cultural highlights include the Eccles Theater and Utah Museum of Fine Arts. It's clean and safe, friendly community. Salt Lake City is friendly and welcoming, which many residents and visitors note. Community spirit is often mentioned as a positive feature. Really good review. I think that was a pretty good depiction of what Salt Lake City is all about. All right, moving on. Here's the last one in this category. Then we're going to get to the better stuff, the really bad reviews. Down here it says, Salt Lake City is an absolutely stunning place to live, especially for those with a passion for the outdoors. There are a wide variety of hiking and biking trails in the warmer months, and perfect snow for activities such as snowshoeing, skiing, and snowboarding. Unfortunately, the air quality in the Salt Lake Valley is poor, and I think that is the area that could use the most improvement. Of course, air quality is a topic of concern here in Utah. We talk about it on all of my videos. We live in this bowl right before the mountains. The atmosphere has to move from west to east, and it gets a lot of things trapped right here down in the valleys as that air has to move up and over the Wasatch Mountains. We typically see 2 to 3 weeks worth of really bad air in the wintertime when we have winter inversions, but we can also see wildfire smoke that comes from California or Idaho or the Pacific Northwest, that smoke gets trapped here as well. So it depends on your perspective. I believe that every year there's probably a month to 2 months worth of bad air days where we just have to keep into consideration where we live, what we want to do. Do we want to be outdoors? Do we want to get up into the mountains? Do we want to go on a vacation? And honestly, it's pretty predictable. The months that we normally see this happen are January and February for winter inversions, and for summertime wildfire season, it's usually in August. So those are the worst months for air if you're living in Utah, and you might want to plan things around those months if you're looking to escape those months where we have the poorest air quality. All right, moving on. People judge you a lot, but it is a very safe place to live, and the cops are usually friendly. I have lived here my whole life, and I wouldn't want to go to college anywhere else other than maybe Harvard. Okay, I guess that's a cool take. If Harvard's the only place that can beat us out, I guess it's a cool place to go to college as well. I personally attended the University of Utah. I think it's a phenomenal school. I'm hoping that as we go into the more bad reviews, we get some really good takes that we can really have some good discussion about. So let's move on into the poor reviews. Now, of all 737 reviews, only 19 were poor and 9 were terrible. So before we get to the terrible, let's just check out a few of these poor reviews first. All right, here we go. Angry drivers are on every street. Okay, a lot of people complain about the drivers here in Utah. I think it's a valid point. And personally, my wife believes that we have some of the worst drivers here in Utah because from her perspective, where she came from California, she thinks that the drivers here are a lot worse. And honestly, I'm not going to argue that whatsoever. Perhaps we do have angry drivers. I think it's safe to say that it's a common theme that we see in the comments. They go on, there are Teslas and Subarus everywhere. Okay, I think that's kind of funny. Yes, there are a lot of Teslas. In fact, if you look at a map of the United States and you look at the top selling vehicle in each and every state, there's only one state in this country where Teslas take the top spot, and that is California. And the state that borders us to the east in Colorado, Subarus reign as king. But here in Utah, the top selling vehicle is the F-Series pickup truck from Ford. So yeah, we might have a lot of Subarus because there is an outdoor lifestyle here, but we see a lot more SUVs and pickup trucks than we do Subarus. All right, moving on. The homeless population is spread out in every direction. Don't think I can't get on board with this one whatsoever. The homeless population is actually very much centered in Salt Lake City. And then as you spread out throughout the valley and into other areas, you will see people panhandling, and that might be where they're coming from, but that is not the same as a homeless population. I don't see homeless people anywhere other than downtown Salt Lake City, although you might see some here and there sporadically. I don't notice it, I don't see it. They go on, drug addicts can be seen using on any property that they think is vacant. I gotta be honest, I don't see this whatsoever. Of course, drug abuse takes place, especially in the homeless population downtown, near on the west side of Salt Lake City, but this is a complete, honestly, it's just not true. None of the roads are drivable. I don't know how I get to work every day because I use roads. All of the roads are drivable, with the exception of those that are under construction because, again, we have ski season and construction season. There are sewer covers and potholes every 100 feet. I don't think we have more sewer covers than any other city, but I will say that we do have a lot of potholes. Being in such an extreme climate where we get the hot summers and the colder winters with the snow and the salt that really tears up those asphalt roads, we do see a lot of potholes, especially in the late winter months. You know, February, March, and into April, that's the worst season for potholes. And although they do a really good job of repairing those, at least putting a Band-Aid on them until summer when we can actually do our road construction, yes, we do have a lot of potholes. And then going on, and traffic cones blocking roads or lanes that have little to no construction. Construction happens, and they usually try to do the biggest construction projects on non-peak hours. In other words, the nighttime hours as well as weekends. So those cones are going to be there no matter what. Just like any other area that's growing, you're going to experience construction here, for sure. Moving on, the air is more toxic due to the rising population. I get a lot of people that think the air is getting worse here, and it's just not true. The facts don't lie. Since the mid-1990s until today, the air has dramatically improved by about half. So our air is only half as bad now as it was in the mid-90s. So many improvements in technology as well as EPA regulations have required different polluters to step up their game. And that comes in so many different ways, but one of the biggest contributing factors for the pollution is automobiles, of course. Automobiles have improved dramatically in the last few decades to the point where the pollutants that come from automobiles are less than half than what they used to be. The other pollution that really impacts us here is buildings, and buildings are being built in a much more efficient way that they just don't pollute anywhere near what they used to. And with the shutting down of the Geneva Steel Mill down in Utah County, as well as the coal-burning power plant just west of downtown Salt Lake City, we've really seen a dramatic improvement in terms of our air quality along a lot of the Wasatch Front, and it's about half as bad as it used to be in the 1990s. Moving on, the Great Salt Lake is drying up, and the mountains block off wind currents. I don't know about the wind currents, but I do know that the Great Salt Lake has been drying up over the last few decades. I remember when I was a small child in the 80s, and the Great Salt Lake was over full. I was a very small child. My grandfather took me to go see these massive pumps that the governor of the state of Utah had purchased at the time to pump lake water out of the lake and into the West Desert because the lake was too full and flooding. And to see it go from that point to just a couple of short years ago, we saw the all-time low for the Great Salt Lake, and now it's recovered significantly as we've had a couple of really good winters. And now they're sending tons of water from Utah Lake up north into the Great Salt Lake, preparing for this next winter. And so the Great Salt Lake is on the mend. It's improving. Hopefully we can continue to get more water into that lake as we have better winters ahead of us. And that is an important and vital part of our life here along the Wasatch Front. We cannot let the Great Salt Lake dry up. All right, moving on. Sometimes the ozone inversion is so bad you can't see the mountains in any direction. Okay, that's true. And it's not an ozone inversion. It's actually a weather phenomenon called an inversion. We do have bad ozone levels here as well many times. Those are two separate issues. And then continuing on, most places are closed or have shorter hours on Sunday. That is very true. If you're coming from a different city or state, Sundays can be kind of like a ghost town around here. And so that's something to adjust towards for sure. A lot of places aren't open on Sunday. The mountains are beautiful and full of potential physical activities: hike, camp, bike, photograph, ski and snowboard, study animal and plant life. There are a lot of breweries, distilleries, bars, and pubs nearby. That's cool. That's changed a lot in the last handful of years as well. There's so much more of that here than there ever was before. So it caters to more of a diverse community, people that really like that stuff. I think it's awesome. There are lots of new apartments and condos going up, but there are still lots of beautiful old houses and buildings. Great long review. Overall, they thought it was a poor place to be, poor place to live, but let's move on. This next person, this is funny. Is anything open after 6 p.m.? I think that's kind of funny. A lot of restaurants close at 9 p.m., sometimes 8 p.m. during the weeknights. And then on the weekends, they close anywhere from 10 to midnight. So yeah, we are not Las Vegas. We are not New York City. This is not the place you come for nightlife. In all honesty, I don't think anybody's ever moved here for the nightlife. But they go on. There's also very little to do here. Okay, I gotta be honest, this just isn't true. There's so many things to do in Utah. In fact, if you've lived anywhere else, this place has an abundance of things to do if you just want to leave your house. I think someone needs to get out a little bit more. I found the people to not be very friendly and almost seem annoyed that we're visiting. It's not the experience I get from all the people that visit. I think people have the opposite experience visiting from all over the country and all over the world, personally. The free public transport is a plus. However, it only is in a very small section of town, and in the time you're waiting, you could just walk. The biggest amusement is a shopping mall, which has the same stores that we have back home. The city does have a very pretty backdrop, but without much to do or have a good meal at the end of the day, because you need to travel 2+ hours to go anywhere to have fun before coming back to the city. I think this person needs a guide to take you through Salt Lake City and experience what it truly offers, because the best dining in this state of Utah is right there in the heart of the city. You could go to a different restaurant each and every day for 3 months straight in the heart of Salt Lake City and not get bored. So it's just a matter of getting out and experiencing what the city truly offers. All right, moving on. This one says, contrary to what one commonly hears, immigration into Salt Lake has not been good for it. Sadly, I've seen the town decline since people began moving here. Beautiful historical buildings have been torn down and replaced with ugly modern condo units. Its distinct character is dying. It started to resemble Denver or any other major metropolis. More and more, it's losing its innocence and becoming a cosmopolitan cesspool ruled by progressive politics. Locals are no longer able to afford buying a home. What happened to Portland and Boise is happening in Salt Lake City. All right, that's your take. You're entitled to your opinion as well. I completely understand where you're coming from, where things are getting torn down. There are a lot of older buildings that have been torn down, but I do believe that Salt Lake City does a phenomenal job in preserving the more historical buildings, the ones that aren't worth tearing down. And from a construction perspective, there's so much more work and money that needs to be put into these old properties that in order to accomplish what one would hope. And ultimately, it's just cost prohibitive for most properties. It's definitely something that's happening in Salt Lake City and every major U.S. city where that gentrification or that redevelopment is happening in these older areas. But I do see a lot of really cool historic buildings being preserved in Salt Lake City as well, which I think adds to the character. I think it's awesome. Let's move on to this review. This one says, the city has an amazing history and is very scenic, but has one of the lowest income to cost of living ratios in the country. Okay, that's actually kind of true. Actually, we're top 5 least affordable places to buy a home. When you compare the median income to the median priced home, this is actually really true. It's a concern. I've shared this in many videos and I'll continue to share this. But the cool thing about what's happening in Utah as well is the incomes are rising. In fact, if you want to live a middle class lifestyle anywhere in the country, you have to define what is middle class. And the definition of middle class is taking household income, factoring in what is a range between 2/3 of average or median household income up to 2 times. In other words, here in Utah, the median household income is just over $100,000 per year. So 2/3 of that is about $67,000 per year, and double that is just over $200,000 per year. And there are only 3 states in the entire country, plus the District of Columbia, where an income of $200,000 still keeps you in the middle class. It's because incomes are on the rise here, and we're seeing this trend continue as more businesses are continuing to relocate and bring high-level talent and higher-paying jobs here as well. All right, moving on. They say the lake is drying up. We've talked about that. We've covered that. It has been drying up, but it's a couple years into a recovery now, and hopefully that recovery continues, especially with more allocated resources in terms of water that's being diverged and sent to the Great Salt Lake for that very purpose. So that's good. And they go on, and it's estimated water resources will be depleted by no later than 2040. Okay, water is a big conversation starter here in Utah. We get drilled into us on the news, the headlines, the articles, etc., that we have to conserve water. And if you're coming from a place where water is an abundant resource, you may not understand how incredibly important this resource is for us here in Utah, being the second driest state in the country. We thrive only because we have water resources from those beautiful mountains and that snowpack that comes each and every winter. That snow melts, it fills up our reservoirs, and we use that water to live throughout the year. Here's the myth. People think that the population growth is impacting the water usage. It's almost not at all. In fact, the residents of Utah only use about 4% of the water resources that we have available to us. And so even if we doubled in population, we'd only need an additional 4% of the water output that we currently have. In other words, we can save water in so many other areas in agriculture, industrial, commercial use, and make up that difference quite easily. The water's not going away. We just have to manage that vital resource carefully, because when we go through a decade-long drought like we came out of a couple of years ago, it can get to be a very heated topic of conversation. All right, moving on though. Let's talk about this. It says here, there's a mounting homeless population, homelessness and affordability crisis. Yes, affordability is a problem. Mounting homelessness, it's just a few thousand people, I get it. They estimate the city will be unaffordable to anyone except rich white people soon unless wages go up. I don't know what white people have to do with it. Maybe more white people are wealthy here. I don't know. I don't care, to be honest with you. I don't think it matters if you're white or any other color. If you have money and you can buy a property, you can do that here in Utah. There's nothing to do with race when it comes to who can afford to buy real estate here. They continue, but wages aren't going up because businesses say they can't with inflation as it is. That's just not true. Wages are on the rise dramatically here in Utah. I will say that if you're working a lower level job, if it's just a transactional type position where anybody can fill that spot, those jobs are not raising their wages very rapidly. And so if you're working in that type of job, a retail job, for example, your wages aren't growing very much. They're far being outpaced by inflation. And so that hurts. I empathize with you. I understand that, but those jobs aren't going to support life here in Utah, nor will they in many places as well. Okay, they continue on. The city is currently beautiful and historic, but nearly everything about this area is unsustainable and on the brink of collapse. I don't think Utah's on the brink of collapse. I think Utah's thriving better than pretty much every state in the country. And Salt Lake City is kind of a light on the hill in terms of how a lot of things are being done. So I don't think this is very accurate. And continuing, they say experts point to similar scenarios in other states where once thriving cities are now toxic and barren ghost towns. I don't know of a single metropolitan area that has 2.5 million people that's now a ghost town. Or if you just focus on Salt Lake City and the Salt Lake City metro itself, 1.25 million people that has become a barren and toxic ghost town. That's just not true. Obviously, sometimes people put more feeling behind their thoughts instead of actually looking at the facts. I think that's the case here. All right, last one on poor, and then we're going to get to the bad ones. Positives, very clean, relatively low crime rate, good job market, amazing outdoor recreation, and one of the most beautiful cities to the eyes. Very light traffic, small town feel if you're into that. Now, the negatives. This is why we're here, right? We're checking out these negative reviews. The negatives. If you aren't Mormon, be prepared to be judged. I'm going to have this conversation really briefly. A lot of people have this mentality that if they're not Mormon or of the LDS faith, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, they're being judged. But in reality, they're judging the people that they think are judging them. That level of judgment, it goes both ways. So when I see these comments like this, it's people judging people. It's this cycle. It makes no sense. Continuing on, although this city is very kid-friendly and safe, being a kid in the school system as a non-Mormon can be really hard and confusing. Okay, I can understand that. If you're not part of the crowd that's involved with a certain faith and, half the class is over here and the other half is over here, and maybe this other half doesn't have a common thread that's keeping them together in some form or fashion where they're doing activities outside of school together. Totally get it. I can completely understand that. That is changing and shifting here in Utah dramatically, especially in Salt Lake City. Far more people here are not of the faith than people that are. They continue. Depression is really common here because of the religious hold on the city. I don't think the religious hold on the city is causing the depression. I got to be honest. I think it's personal to each and every person. They continue. The church really does influence our laws. Okay. The people in the church that are voted into, government positions absolutely do influence laws here. Totally get it. Especially the alcohol laws. We talked about that. And the lack of things to do that aren't outdoor recreation. Okay. Maybe that's fair. Maybe it's not. I don't think it's fair. I think there's so much to do here outside of outdoor recreation. Extremely harmful blanket of pollution in the winter. Lots of homelessness and drugs. Media is very good at hiding the drug and homelessness problem here, but it is rampant. It's certainly not rampant, and the news is not hiding it. They show it. It's a topic of conversation all the time. Here we go. Most of the suburban moms are even on prescription opioids or Xanax. My wife's suburban mom. She's not on Xanax or opioids, so maybe she just doesn't fit into the most category that this person's calling out, but they continue. People here are very entitled, poor public school system, high property crime, housing market awful, expensive. Overall, I can't stand it here. Beauty ruined by religion. Okay, sounds like someone's got a personal problem, and maybe Utah's just not the right place for you. If this person's watching this video, reach out to me. I can definitely help you move if you're looking to go somewhere else. I think this person just isn't in the right place for them. Let's do one more here in the poor, and then let's get straight to the bad. Love visiting so much to see and do. Indoors and outdoors, there is something for everyone to do. So much natural beauty. That's a really great review to only get a poor, 2-star rating. It's kind of funny. All right, so that's enough of the poor reviews. Let's move into the most terrible reviews. And out of the 737 reviews, 9 of them fall into the category of terrible. So let's see what people have to say about Salt Lake City being a terrible place. All right, first up, I had really high hopes after coming to Salt Lake City for work reasons. I have to tell you, and I travel quite a bit for work, Salt Lake City has got to be the dirtiest and smelliest town of them all. Okay, I just can't relate. I help people make the move here and visit here each and every single week, and I routinely get the same comment that Salt Lake City is the cleanest city they've ever seen. I don't know what this person has experienced or where they've lived, but it's certainly not a description of Salt Lake City, as almost everybody that comes here is proactive about sharing how clean this city is and how much of an impression that personally made on them. So I don't think that's really true whatsoever. But moving on in their review, they also share that there's nothing to do in this town, all caps, at all. I think that is a complete misconception. I'm hoping that this person has found that there's more to do here than what they've experienced, because they simply haven't opened their eyes about what there is to do in the city, whether that be with sports and entertainment or culturally speaking or arts or other festivals or things that come into the city. There's so much to do in Salt Lake City. I'm hoping that this person gains a better and more optimistic perspective moving forward. But moving on to the next one, this person shares, I've lived here 23 years and this city has completely gone to bleep, 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 bleep. You name it. I'm selling my house as soon as possible and leaving because they don't listen to their residents at all. They take the side of whoever has the bigger check. We will run out of water and we are the way we are growing. Look at the Great Salt Lake. We had 2 good years. Now we will be back to a drought. Okay. Okay, this person's wallowing in negativity. I totally get it. If you read the headlines, and the headlines are strictly geared towards playing to people's fears, because that is what gets more clicks, more eyeballs, more advertising revenue. In fact, on my YouTube channel here, if I do a title and a thumbnail that have a little bit more of a negative connotation, in other words, avoid moving to Utah or this or that or the other, they get far more views and comments because it does play to people's fears. And it looks like this person just has fallen into that trap, and hopefully they gain a better perspective because there's so much more positivity out there as well. All right, moving on. Crime. I've lived in cities that have higher crime rates than Salt Lake City, but Salt Lake City has no idea how to deal with crime. They ascribe to the bury your head in the philosophy. Not sure what they're saying, but I think what they're trying to say is just bury your head and not address this problem. 1/3 of the police force quit, so trying to get an officer out to a serious crime scene such as a shooting is like pulling teeth. I can tell you right now, I have friends in law enforcement. That is not the case in Salt Lake City whatsoever. Maybe they've had a personal experience, and if you read through and continue to read through this review, it looks like they had a specific and serious problem with them not being responded to for one reason or another. I'm going to trust that I don't know both sides of the story here, but let's go on to the next review. This one says, the doorman was aggressive, rude, and inconsiderate outside and sweet and nice inside. When I asked him about it, he said it was because I bothered him while he was on this phone. I was refused tap water. I prefer to tip the bartender $5 for tap water versus paying for bottled water. I looked up the laws online, then informed the bartender it's illegal to refuse humans tap water at a facility that serves liquor. He said I could talk to the owner when he arrived. Okay. It looks to me like someone left a review based on a negative experience that they had at a bar that may or may not have involved alcohol prior to this experience. Nonetheless, I don't think it's a fair assessment to give Salt Lake City a review for a personal interaction that you had at a bar. So let's move on. All right, moving on. The next one. If I could, I'd give this city a 0, but I'll give it a 1 because there are at least 5 individuals who are about positive as I am. Okay. Everyone else was rude, judgmental, and all seem to have an issue with homeless people. Cost of living is too overpriced. Like, are you kidding me? City is of whack, and it seems the governor won't do anything about it. Honestly, the worst state by far. Negativity. Cost of living in terms of housing, yes, it is expensive. It is a problem. We've talked about that at length. City is whack. I don't know what that means. Whatever. I think what you focus on expands. If you're looking for rude people, if you think that everybody's rude, you're going to notice rude people, and you're going to interpret those interactions as being more rude as well. But let's move on. Next up, high rent, bad air, low pay, overall bad. Lived here since I was in elementary. Multiple apartment complexes being built, but wage is still low. Many people moving from other states like California, Chicago, Canada, China. Not many places to visit since everything either closes early or not worth going. Places do close early on weekdays here in Utah and in Salt Lake City and on Sundays. So it's definitely not a thriving nightlife like you'll experience in Los Angeles or Las Vegas or in other cities throughout the country or the world, but there's a lot of good here as well if you're open to those experiences as well, and I think those are the people that thrive best here in Salt Lake City. All right, moving on. I work in Salt Lake City teaching individual group therapy sessions to clients due to substance abuse. Yes, people from prison and jail. The behavioral health industry is huge in Salt Lake City because of drug addicts and homelessness. The city's trying, but they're not doing enough. I totally get it. If you work in a specific field where you're around negativity a lot, you're going to think that that is expanding far beyond your sphere, your experience. My heart goes out to someone like this. I don't know if I could personally deal with working in an environment where I get to see those things on a day-to-day basis, nor could I work in a type of job like law enforcement where I have to see the worst in society each and every day. So I understand it. But moving on, Salt Lake City is only good if you never do anything and staying home all of the time. Okay, this one's kind of funny to me. There's so much to do here if you just walk out that front door, look up at those mountains, go experience what they offer, go experience what the city offers, the sports, the entertainment, the lifestyle, the concerts, the festivities, the art scene, the cultural scene. There's so much to do here. I gotta be honest, it's your fault. If this person's watching, hopefully they've gained perspective and actually stepped outside and go experience something. Hopefully. Last one, lots of crime and issues with the homeless population. Air quality is some of the worst in the nation. Expensive to live here. Yes, it's expensive to live here. Yes, we have some of the worst air in the nation at times. Absolutely. Homeless population, it's overblown. It's in the news, of course, but it's just a few thousand people centered around Salt Lake City for the most part. Overall, I'm hoping hoping that these reviews and my reaction to them is helping you gain just a little bit of perspective about what it's like to come to Salt Lake City. So if you've already made the move to Utah and you're just not in the right place, or perhaps you're looking to make the move here yourself, my team and I would love to be your real estate resource of choice. So please reach out to us. And like I said earlier, most people that are watching my videos are not subscribed. If I've earned it, please hit that subscribe button so that you can stay in touch with more future videos that I'm doing each and every week. And if you're looking to learn more about life in Utah, check out this playlist next. And until the next video, thanks.